Hello, everybody. We are just going to give it a few minutes for people to come in. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I think we're expecting quite a few people, so we will give it a few minutes, perhaps. Oh, that's quite nice. We're at 61 already. All right. Maybe we start. Kendra, is that okay? You think?
Yeah, go ahead. There's still
Yeah.
people joining, but I think you can go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I am Saloni Hiriur. I am the platformization and digitalization specialist at WIEGO. And for those of you who may not know WIEGO, WIEGO is a global research and policy network which works with several member-based organizations and focuses on improving working conditions for women workers in the informal economy. And this includes platform workers increasingly so in the digital economy. We're here today in what is the first in a series of webinars. Apologies for that. And we're discussing a critical and often contentious issue today. It's often something that is brought up as a priority for workers, which is the aspect of worker classification. Across many regions, one of the primary and foremost concerns for workers, for platform workers, has been that platforms often categorize them as independent contractors. And by doing this, by giving them this designation, platforms are able to disclaim any responsibility towards these workers as employers of these workers. At the same time, this debate on worker classification is not entirely new. Um, Historically, worker organizations within the broader informal economy, and many of us work in these spaces, they have for decades been actively deliberating different models, concepts, classifications of employments that are better able to reflect the realities of workers and workers' needs. So we have two speakers here with us today who will help us situate these debates, um, these current debates of platform worker classification within this historical conversation and the broader set of struggles, which includes wins at global advocacy forums and spaces such as the International Labour Conference, the ILC, and this is an effort so that we as workers are able to find some common grounds and approach this forum strategically as a more cohesive worker group in June. So with that, I will introduce our two speakers. So we have Ruth Castelbranco, who is a senior researcher at SCIS, which is the Southern Center for Inequality Studies down in South Africa. We also have Pat Horn, who is a senior program advisor at WIGO. Um, and so they will be situating these debates and discussions that I have just mentioned. So apart from the two speakers, we also have four discussants who will offer their perspectives, and these perspectives will be from a diverse set of points. And this is both geographically, but also sectorally. So we have Fish, who's the regional coordinator for Asia at IDWF, which is the Domestic Workers Federation. We have Jemima Nyakongo, who's the interim international coordinator at HomeNet International. We have Tanari Jaruprasad, who's the president of the Southern Riders Association of Thailand. And also, this is part of the Global Platform Worker Solidarity Project, who, if some of us know, organized a side event at the ILC last year. And finally, we have Taylor Cass Talbot, who's the advocacy coordinator at IAWP, which is the Speakers Association. Right before I hand over to the speakers, a few quick housekeeping notes. We are recording this meeting, as you would have seen. We also have interpretation in 6 languages today. So if you look down on your screen, there is a globe icon. And through this globe icon, you can toggle between the six or pick whichever language you would like to hear this webinar in. We have English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Thai, and Korean. The chat function is open, so do feel free to introduce yourself, share where you're joining from. We're very happy to welcome you here. You can also put your questions down. I can't promise. So, based on time, we will try and get to these. Uh, but either way, your questions and comments are always very helpful, and they will contribute to shaping future webinars and contribute to these ongoing discussions. I will also share my email in the chat in case anyone would like to follow up. So, with that, I'm very pleased to hand over to Ruth. Ruth, you have 10 minutes, and maybe I'll give you an 8-minute warning. Thank you so much, Ruth. I think you've brought in very crucial points, and you're pushing us to look at power really and how that circulates and what form and shape it takes, and to stress that this is a political question, not just a technical or socio-technical question. So, with that, Pat, I would like to bring you in. You've been sort of historically been engaged with worker collectivizing and organizing. You've seen how these debates play out at the ILC. The blue reports also come out, so I think you're going to refer to that as well. But can you talk to us a bit about, very specifically, strategically, about the ILC and how to bring these debates there? Sorry, Pat, can I ask you to go to the first slide? We're seeing sort of in the middle of the presentation right now. If you can just click on the first and start presenting. That's perfect, Pat. Thank you.
Do you
That's
want
all
me to
right, Pat.
help
Yeah.
you, Pat? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. You sort of walked us through the historical debate, but also you've already done an initial analysis of the Blue Report. So thank you for that. I'll turn to the discussants now. We have four discussants from various parts of the world, but also different sectors of work. So, Fish, if I can call on you first to speak to us on behalf of the domestic workers, both maybe respond to what Ruth and Pat have said, but also been doing this work of organizing platform workers and thinking about their position. So it'd be great to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soloni. In fact, platform domestic workers are not so much organized in our affiliates. That reflect platform domestic workers are very difficult to be organized because they are more marginalized among the already very much vulnerable domestic workers. When we are talking about platform workers, in our mind is often the delivery workers, the drivers. So the platform domestic workers actually is the third largest platform workers in among the platform economy, but they are still often ignored and very much invisible. First of all, I want to mention that when we talk about platform domestic workers, what we have heard from our affiliates, in general, there are two types. One is the on-demand and location-based, like you have the apps and then you order a domestic worker, the domestic worker will come to the household. The other situation is that there are also recruitment agencies or job boards that they use digital platforms, social media, etc., to post jobs and then refer workers to. And sorry. Of course, these may be more relate to recruitment agencies, or they may fall under the private employment agencies regulation and laws, and the IOC 181. And there are different opinions among governments on whether these should be recognized or included in the discussion on the platform economies is still yet to be discussed. So anyway, I would like to focus more on the on-demand and location-based type of platform domestic work. So there are many issues. First and foremost is that domestic workers are still very much excluded from labor laws and social protection policies. And among all kind of platform workers, from research, it's found that most platform workers are excluded from the social protection. So do the domestic workers as well. And there are countries where there are new laws and policies to protect platform workers. But even when you have new laws and policy on platform workers, platform domestic workers are excluded as well. This is still a major problem for all of us. Number two, platform domestic workers are majority women, and that is give the risk to sexual harassment because we go to private households. And most of the platform domestic workers, when they are sexually harassed, often they don't report it because they worry of the retaliation by the client households to put you into very low rating. If you got low rating, then it means you will get less and least number of job orders, and even can be removed by receiving job orders by the algorithm. And the other thing is, even the platform domestic workers are so strong enough to report the cases, and you have got the client, the households arrested or punished by the government, whatever, but the platform companies bear no responsibilities on this. So because they are just they call themselves intermediary, that they have no responsibilities, and there are no we have never seen any government laws and regulations governing this due diligence of these platform companies. And I have many points, bear with me. Another very much complained by the platform domestic workers is the overtime work. Usually, the platform companies will give a hourly package. For example, this is a 4-hour work, 2 hours work, and meaning they are also hourly paid. So, but then when you come to the households, you have big and small, more organized or more messy households, or more stuffs in the households. All these varies the working times that you need to do cleaning, for example. But when there are also situations where the households will give last minute demand to the domestic workers. So this is last minute, you are going to finish the job, you are going to press the button to say I complete, but the 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 households give you last minute demand, then what should you do? Of course, usually domestic workers will still entertain these last minute demand because they don't want to have low rating. And if you compare to the usual domestic workers where you can discuss and explain to the employers, this is the households, this is how much time I should spend on this kind of job. The platform client will not have that because you won't build trust and relationship with the employers to allow you to communicate well and explain well with your employers to discuss what should be the reasonable job arrangement. Platform domestic workers cannot have that. So you do not have the flexibility to discuss on the job arrangement. Another thing that is very much complained is on the wage issue. Domestic workers already receive low wages, and our Korean studies on the platform domestic workers found out that domestic workers' average wage is only 2/3 of the average wage of all the platform workers. But platform domestic workers are more relying on the income from the platform work. And also when in countries where you have collective bargaining agreement covering the protection of the minimum wage for domestic workers, but in platform, you are excluded. For example, in Brazil, there is already collective bargaining agreement with Sao Paulo Domestic Workers Union, but platform domestic workers fall out of this collective bargaining agreement. The other thing that put wage of platform domestic workers very low is that the platform promote competition among workers. They put workers into competition with one another. So you compete for the job by what? By lower wages. So lower and lower wages, and especially when there are workers, more unemployment in the country, more workers have to rely on platform to look for job. And they are very much rely on this income, and these are emergency economic situation. So that's why they lower their wage in order to find jobs from the platform. And sorry. So the platform companies, they promote flexibility for clients, for households to choose and order and cancel, open for workers to be open to be hired and fired. But on the working condition, it's not flexible at all. You cannot discuss on the working time, reasonable working time. You cannot find jobs and have flexibility to decide what jobs you want to go or not want to go, because the algorithm will put you into like a bad workers, and then you will receive less jobs. Also, because as I shared, the platform domestic work is arranged in the sense of hourly arrangement or 4-hour package, 2-hour package work. So for the client households, of course, they don't want to pay more. So they want to give you the least period of time and to get the most of the job done. I also want to highlight that there are initiatives by the labor organizations or cooperatives to open platform in order to give domestic workers to have labor rights, to have proper labor contracts, social protection coverage, etc. But among the platform economy, the platform companies themselves also face fierce market competition. That's how they put the workers into lower and lower wages. And also these goodwill initiative by the pro-labor organizations or cooperatives, very often they cannot compete with these private companies, because private companies, they have to maximize profit. And how they maximize profits is that they will compete with one and another with big capitals to conquer the markets as quick as possible and as massive as possible. Once you can occupy it and become monopoly, then everybody rely on you to look for workers. So that's how the games looks like. And that's how platform companies try to squeeze the working conditions of the workers, and also the labor-friendly or pro-labor rights platform cannot compete in these markets of platforms. So I have mentioned many situations about the time and the wages and the worries about the low rating, retaliation if the workers reject the job orders, etc. And also the platform companies, they do have a lot of requirements. For example, they need you to attend some online or face-to-face trainings, and you have to 24-hour standby to read all these notifications, and you have to confirm you have read all these notifications. All these are timing, and these are not paid. And another thing I want to highlight is that the name of the applications of the platform. So the name of the application can be positive, professionalizing domestic workers. It can be also very demeaning. It's all about market strategy, how the company strategy to attract clients. So we have seen more positive situation where, for example, in Korea, the platform put the domestic workers as household managers. They promote domestic workers are professionals and promote the client to find workers through the platform because these workers are professionals. However, there are also country cases where the names are very demeaning. For example, in Brazil, a major platform is called Marry Help, reminding people of the colonized area how domestic workers are called. And in India, domestic workers are named, the apps is named as Instant Maid, when maid is very much derogatory, indicating submissiveness or even being the property of the masters. And other names include broomies, like we are the brooms only, or the names as Ponto, Ninja Health, Instant, to highlight how fast and quick and promptness our work should be. And of course, doing the work very, very fast is by urge, and that is back-breaking. So,
Sorry, Fish. I'm going to
sorry.
ask you to quickly summarize so we can speak.
Okay,
Sorry
so
about
there are also situations where we cannot complain, difficult to complain. In short, the platform domestic workers are very much under big control by the platform companies, but we are not provided with the necessary protection and legal framework to protect us. And the platform compete and maximize profit, and that put us into more and more backbreaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fish.
hand
We
over
clearly
to
have a
Saloni.
lot to We clearly have so much to talk about, each of us, and thank you for actually even responding to Ruth's prompt that this is a political conversation, not just a technical one. And so you've walked us through the ways in which domestic workers experience the platform economy so well. And with that, I'll turn to Jemima to tell us a bit more about the home-based workers and their experiences of platforms.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Solani, for the introduction. I hope my audio is audible enough.
Yes,
We
you're
hear you.
good.
All right. Okay, thank you. And thank you to Ruth for providing such insightful and thoughtful, provoking pointers for our discussion today. And part on that historical overview and the proposed strategies were deeply helpful and provided rich and essential context for our understanding. And thank you to Fish for sharing with us your critical and lived experiences of domestic workers operating within the rapidly evolving platform economy. And so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone who is joining us from different parts of the globe for this vital conversation today. My name is Jemima Nyakongo, and I am the interim coordinator for HomeNet International. And I'll start by basically just sharing with us what HomeNet International is and the home-based workers. And so HomeNet International is a global network um, that is representing and collectively interest of 1.5 million home-based workers from around the world. And I'll start by clearly explaining who a home-based worker is, because we are talking about misclassifications that sometimes these conversations thrive in. It's important that we also just clearly mention who a home-based worker is. And so a home-based worker are defined as those individuals who produce goods or offer services from within or the surrounding of their homes. And globally, they are over 260 million, according to the ILO statistics that was shared in 2019. And then they are integral and they make diverse and significant contributions, driving production in textiles. They are into garments, they're into crafts and assembly, and therefore they are sustaining local and global economies and crucially also serving as the primary survival mechanism for their households. So despite the magnitude and necessity of these contributions that the home-based workers provide, they still remain invisible and they are largely unrecognized by governments, by labor inspectorates and formal employers. And so there is need for their recognition. And so today, my remarks will particularly focus specifically on the self-employed home-based workers. And this group includes independent artisans such as basket weavers. And I am a very good example of a self-employed home-based workers for the longest time and who thrived in basket weaving. There's also the craft makers or also the small-scale garment workers who autonomously design, they produce, and they also sell their own products. It's an increasingly digitized world. So this group is rapidly accessing markets through new digital avenues and the e-commerce websites that are being also presented by these platforms. And despite also having these digital platforms, they also use social media platforms and specialized digital platforms to help them in marketing their goods. And the digital economy is a new frontier for old workforce, and the problem of misclassification also befalls them. And so the challenges that home-based workers face are tragically mirrored in the platform economy. Home-based workers have perpetually struggled with claiming employment protections because they often lack a clear, singular employer, or they are situated within complex or multi-layered supply chains that are involving numerous intermediaries, contractors, and also the subcontractors. Digital platforms consistently insist that they merely technologically intermediaries. And so a neutral digital space connecting buyers and sellers, that is what they believe it is. But however, this assertion fundamentally ignores the reality of their power. And so platforms frequently set the terms of engagement, and this dictates standards, deadlines, and also mandatory protocols. They also control pricing structures. They are usually using algorithms or setting commission rates that determine the workers' effective pay. They also, through complex and opaque algorithms that decide who gets seen and who gets orders. And this also really determines visibility of the home-based workers, even as they try to maneuver the market. They also allocate large orders, and this is also functioning like a centralized contracting entity. So in practical terms, this is controlling mechanisms represents an authority structure that is highly similar to that of traditional employer, yet without any of the associated legal obligations, such as the minimum wages and social contributions and surveillance that the home-based workers really want to address. So for home-based workers, there is the enduring misclassification. And the process of labeling them as independent entrepreneurs or maybe artisans has meant that systemic exclusion from care labor, law protections, the right to join collective bargaining frameworks, and
Sorry, Jemima, you're okay to
hello?
go on.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as digital platforms reshape markets, the home-based workers are facing new and evolving needs. And so the first one is on capacity building and critical, and it's very critical for the home-based workers. Many workers are highly skilled producers but lack digital literacy. There is also lack of knowledge of platform algorithms. There is effective online marketing strategies, pricing in competitive digital markets, and data protection awareness. So without these essential skills, they are placed as a significant disadvantage. The second one is on access to the tools and infrastructure that remains a major barrier. Reliable internet connectivity, smartphones, computers, digital payment systems, and logistics services are not universally accessible or affordable, and many home-based workers must rely on shared devices or maybe intermediaries, which increases dependency and reduces their autonomy. The third one is that there's a growing need for marketing support. And platforms reward those who understand branding, those who understand content creation, those who understand customer engagement. And so most of the time, workers must invest on time and money in photography and advertising, and also responding to customers, often without any guaranteed sales. And so orders can be canceled without compensation or leaving workers with unsold stock and also financial losses. The fourth one is that home-based workers need protection from arbitrary platform decisions. Accounts can either be suspended, sometimes visibility is reduced, or terms change without consultation. And because platforms classify them as entrepreneurs or artisans rather than workers, there is no recourse for labor protection. And finally, there is need to ensure that digital spaces do not undermine collective organizing. Many platforms are designed for individual sellers, not for cooperative or social and solidarity economy units. And this design isolates workers and weakens their collective bargaining power. And then there are also strong commonalities between home-based workers and the platform workers that I would also like to share with us. So both groups experience invisibility and misclassification as entrepreneurs. Even when their work is structured and controlled by others, both face income insecurity, unpredictable demands, and unilateral changes in terms and conditions. And both of them lack access to social protection, Both of them operate in highly fragmented environments that undermine collective power. And fundamentally, both seek recognition as workers, access to labor rights, fair remuneration, transparency in decision-making systems, and the right to organize and bargain collectively. At the core, both groups are demanding dignity. They demand for voice and protection in rapidly changing labor markets. And as an organization that is dedicated to raising the visibility and recognition of home-based workers around the world, HomeNet International sees its strong links with the wider platform workers movement. And so home-based workers have decades of experience organizing in two contexts where employment relationships are disguised or fragmented. We have developed strategies, and that is HomeNet International, to demand for recognition, to map supply chains and also hold employers accountable. The platform workers movement brings important energy. It also brings visibility and new organizing strategies in digital spaces. There is significant potential for solidarity between these movements, especially around common demands such as algorithmic transparency, fair contracts, social protection, and collective bargaining rights. We believe that informal economy worker organizations and the platform worker organizations can and must strengthen each other so that they realize visibility and recognition. So with these discussions that are underway and the ILC that is also fast approaching, on the draft convention and the recommendation for the decent work in the platform economy, our expectations as HomeNet International is that we clearly need the convention that will ensure that all workers in the platform economy, including the self-employed home-based workers, are recognized as workers entitled to labor rights and protections. Second, it must address and ensure that the determination of employment status is based on the reality of the working relationship and not just labels that are assigned to platforms. And third, it must also guarantee the right to organize and bargain collectively, including for workers currently classified as the self-employed. Fourth, it must also ensure access to social protection, effective dispute resolution mechanisms, and protections against unfair practices. And finally, it must consider digital inclusion, affordable access to digital tools, training, and infrastructure must be recognized as essential to enabling equitable participation in the platform-based markets. At HomeNet International, representing over 1.5 million home-based workers, we demand that the future of work in the platform economy does not replicate the invisibility and exclusion from labor laws that informal economy workers have always experienced for the longest time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jemima. I think you walked us through both what the realities of home-based workers are, but you've tied it so well to the contemporary sort of platform worker and also drawn similarities between the groups. I'm sure this will be an ongoing conversation. And it's good to hear HomeNet's position going into the ILC in June. I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about that in the months to come. Just a quick note for everyone. We may go slightly over time since clearly we have a lot to talk about. So just so that everyone is aware, this won't be too much over, but we may go slightly over. Our next speaker, Tanari, is joining us from the Southern Riders Association, and a quick note that she will be speaking in Thai. So if everyone wants to take the time to make sure they're on the right channel, Tanari, I'm handing over to you.
So the floor will go to Kun Thanyari. Hello everyone, my name is Thanyari Charupasit. I'm a president from the Southern Rider Association of Thailand. So I would like to say thank you to Saloni and everyone who gave us all the presentation describing our struggle for all workers. And I would like to say thank you to WIEGO for the invitation to join the webinar today. First of all, I would like to present to you the Southern Rider Association of Thailand to introduce our background. The Southern Rider Association has been established for 5 to 6 years, and our main objective is to help all riders who are facing problems, many problems regarding the use of application or problems related to clients or vendors. So we registered as a association 2 years ago. Next slide, please. So why we organize ourselves? The reason is 10 years ago, the rider worker happened in Thailand, and after COVID-19, labor joining rider network increased. And after this increase, there were lots of problems. For example, people didn't know how to use the application. The elderly didn't know how to use the application, how they can take order and what should they do after that. Or some riders fought with the vendors. They got the wrong order, or some rider need to help their colleagues, their peers with child bringing, child rearing. And after this problem, we came to understand that this problem will continue into the future, because one reason is because of the government and the platform has not issued any legal framework that will provide benefit for all riders. We organize ourselves to ask for our dignity, especially for women riders who tend to be neglected. Next slide, please. And from this slide, we tend to hear that what Jemima and Fish has mentioned earlier, that many riders or platform workers, they will be brainwashed and being asked or being called as a partner or a contractor. That's what they like to call us. But actually, the term contractor or partner is just a beautiful word. So the platform company can look good and to say that, okay, you are an independent contractor, you are free to select your own job and time. But actually, if we look again at the system, we have been controlled harshly by algorithms, but we lack all the basic welfare or benefit. We need to be responsible for everything by ourselves, like the health coverage, the liability, even though we cannot control our own waste. And the government just let these platform companies to be above labor standard or legal framework, even though the Human Rights Commission has already mentioned that actually riders are employee, and employee is a person who receive wages from employer. This definition already define rider, but actually that's why we are employees, right? But still government has not taken any action. That's why we need to organize and build up this movement. Next slide, please. So from the previous slide, I mentioned that we need to build up our movement in terms of policy advocacy. We cannot build up this movement if we are alone, right? Or we only have our rider network. Our strength is at the fact that we are trying to collect all workers working through platform, not just rider. So we do link to other platform workers like a barista, the domestic worker. We try to build this connection and to connect ourselves to the academics, performers, singer, because we see these networks as a benefit strategy for us. We can move together, so all riders and other workers can become informal. And we focus on our unity, solidarity. At this moment, I need to say that the labor organizing is not the same kind of movement that we tend to be familiar in the past. It's not like, okay, a fighting movement, because for the Southern Rider Association of Thailand, we used to be like that in the past, but we has not been succeed. We understand that now we are under the control of the platform company. We have a job or not depend on the company, right? So if we fight with them directly and our GPS location show on the platform that we are gathering with other network, this will be notified to the platform company. So many riders tend to feel afraid to come out to do the bargaining movement. So we shift our strategy to do the activity together between network first offline, and then to talk offline first and share the struggle that we are facing. So in building up this movement, I need to say thank you to APW to give us this opportunity to do the research on the struggle and needs of women riders. Under this research, we became to understand our situation and expand our network, linking with other platform workers. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we cannot do this by ourselves. What we need to do is to build up network and to expand our network outside Thailand. Fighting alone is very difficult, and we didn't have enough power. That's why we start to look for alliance outside Thailand. We joined GPWSP and APWLD and other international networks that I didn't mention here. But at least these two networks allow us to learn and exchange negotiating strategies and to expand the needs of riders in Southern Thailand, and to share our struggle to other partners outside the country, and to discuss with them how we can stop this exploitation from platform companies. Next slide, please. This mention about women riders. in their daily work, what kind of struggle they are facing. First of all, they tend to work overtime, especially in this situation that the World War III might happen right now. The increasing oil price affect a lot on revenue of these women riders, make them feel very tired because they need to work more hours. In Thailand, as far as we conduct research, we found that many women riders are facing sexual harassment through online chat with clients, or some riders got deceived from client. Rider thought that they got orders, but actually when they met with client, they got assault, or another women rider did pick up client to give them a ride, but they got assault. For these two cases, they were lucky enough to got help from good civilian, so they could escape rape or sexual assault. But currently we tend to think that okay, women riders are more risky than men, but actually male rider also are a risky group to got sexual harassment also. And company platform, they don't think about how to prevent this at all. Next slide, please. So this is our main request to the platform companies. We want this new definition for all workers, all platform workers, that we would like to have same protection under a single labor law. No one left behind, especially for the sexual harassment and sexual violence. Now I see application like Grab in Thailand that okay, they add the SOS button to the application for rider to use, and I asked some rider about this button, whether it's helping or not. They say that okay, they can use this function, but this function cannot link directly instantly to the local police or the law enforcement. So this is our main request, especially with the definition of worker in the platform system. Next slide, please. These are main requests that we would like to give to the government. The first one is the legal recognition, a clear definition, and next is the strategy to check on platform to prevent exploitation. Why I'm saying this, as we all know, all platform workers got controlled by algorithm. And when we say to the platform company that we want transparency, they tend to say that I don't know about the algorithm transparency, because this is why we got control and exploited, because they can reduce our wage, they can stop our work, they can kick us out from the system without any legal punishment or legal framework to control this. The policy can be changed every week, like change in incentive or the payment per round. It can be reduced or distance can be increased. So the rider they start to complain because the Thai government is asking for rider to register for the Royal 11, Royal 17. But for motorcyclists or taxi driver who has already registered, they can set their own ratio or their payment ratio per round. But for the second batch or other batch of registration, they cannot have their own fixed rate. We need to pay more car taxation and for the second-hand car to be sold, we lost our benefit because once we registered, our car will be seen as a second-hand car. These are all linked. Next slide, please. So in summary, we see that the solidarity of the network is the best thing that we should protect because we has already seen that once we have solidarity, we can do many things and to access our own right and dignity completely, both from platform companies and all the government. So I would like to say to us all, let's keep up this solidarity and push forward for our legal protection and policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanari. You've taken us through so much. You've taken us through sort of the experiences of riders in your network. You've taken us through the importance of cross-network and global solidarity. You've also talked to us about the fact that platforms actually have so much control, and I'm seeing comments in the chat as well. Feroz has written and Graciela has written about the need for transparency and how platforms, the ways in which they are exercising control over workers. I see there's a hand up for a question, but can I ask you to hold on to that? And we'll come back to that if there's time after our next speaker. So I'll turn next to Taylor. Taylor, the floor is yours. We'd love to hear from the experiences of waste pickers.
Thanks, Saloni. I'll try to keep my comments brief. My name is Taylor Cass-Talbot with the International Alliance of Waste Pickers, and this presentation is based largely on an internal exchange that we held among affiliates last December to just understand the landscape for waste pickers in the platform economy today. Waste pickers are engaging in the platform economy in so many other workers here in a huge variety of ways by accessing social protections in some cases. Groups like the Bangladesh Waste Pickers Union are actually using the platform economy to upload important documents that might be at risk of being lost. Even simple platforms like WhatsApp for organizing obviously have become really essential for our networks and for our ability to organize. On the other hand, we face a lot of similar challenges as other workers in the informal economy. We've seen a really growing rise of what we're calling Uber for recycling services that are, you can order a service of somebody to come and collect your recyclables with a lot of similar challenges as were already expressed here from just barriers of having technology for phones as well as transportation. Also seeing this being an entry point for a lot of competition, especially amongst actors who aren't waste pickers. Of course, consolidating, the provision of these services under a company. Oftentimes, we noticed those owners of those companies tended to be a little more middle class, more educated, and sometimes, scoping years later, coming back to them, finding these entities didn't really exist in the economy anymore. They had failed as a business model. So they come in, they disrupt the sector, oftentimes outcompeting waste pickers. And then in the long run, they're still succumbing to the same trends that we see of market consolidation in service provision within the waste industry, waste and materials management, I'll say, industry. So, I mean, of course, the waste pickers who can access these platforms and provide services definitely do see increase in incomes, lower number of hours working in a day oftentimes. But the reality, of course, is that, these systems will harm waste pickers for some. It might benefit some, but overall, it may be to detriment, particularly to those workers who are most vulnerable. Increasingly, waste pickers are needing to use these kinds of platforms for providing traceability and demonstrating that they're processing materials. The Argentine National Waste Pickers Federation spoke about, doing a lot of their cooperative management on platform to facilitate this traceability and centralization of information. And, they, like so many of our other affiliates, are also, looking to create their own platforms to ensure traceability through policy frameworks called extended producer responsibility, or EPR. This is hugely impacting our sector very rapidly, I would say. Most of the countries where we have affiliates are facing some kind of extended producer responsibility policy. And that transform and change, who owns data, and that really link data with capital. One pretty notable example is the South Africa EPR law, which actually was written to facilitate a digital payment and registration from the producers, producer responsibility organizations, as they're called, or PROs, directly to reclaimers or waste pickers via an app. And it's not gone very well so far. The first experience that waste pickers noticed with the platform was that foreigners were excluded because this is a national registration system. The payment method was really difficult, especially if you don't have a bank account or an ID. And they've registered many people under the platform. But what's happened is that the payment has trickled down really only so far as to arrive at those who are really producing the data. And usually that's not the waste pickers. So, I think the data is used to basically show that materials are being collected. And in that sense, the data itself is really kind of where capital is resting. So owning data is becoming increasingly essential for waste pickers, especially while we're facing these huge growth of circular economy policies like EPR. And it, so often too, like these data systems they're held by these producer responsibility organizations, which can exist, at local level, national level, and increasingly we're seeing these organizations operating at international levels. So the need to be organizing ourselves at international levels is also increasingly relevant. And so often, similar to what Tainari mentioned around, you can't really fight with these platform companies. It's similar within the scope of EPR for us. Like, we actually, in order to remain viable in this sector, we have to be engaging and partnering with producer organizations, even if they represent competition for us. And then, oftentimes our organizations become very much dependent on them for their data systems, for their traceability systems, and as a result, for the infrastructure that comes about from these systems. And this is only, I think, going to be more and more relevant to us with the growth of EPR policies, also kind of regional changes, like we, of course, see Europe taking things up a notch by instituting pretty widespread traceability and due diligence requirements across value chains, including things like digital passports for textiles and other materials. So, it's really imperative that we up our game on our ability to demonstrate traceability. Because, of course, traceability, as it's increasingly demanded within our sector, it's really not possible to ensure full traceability without documenting what is happening at the level of waste pickers. So, either these economies or these governments are going to, either they need to include us in these traceability schemes and really meaningfully include us in EPR laws and other measures to ensure traceability, or we're going to be excluded altogether as a way of complying with those requirements. And so that's kind of the risk that we face at hand. And yeah, we see this as a pretty critical moment in time, particularly with the rapid rise of AI, et cetera. Most waste pickers are pretty unaware, I would say, of the importance of data. And I think as a result, a lot of times our organizations are used for that data, or at the very least, when we are generating data, we're not really paid for it. It's not seen as this commodity that it actually is. And I think we need to change that perspective pretty quickly here. So we're asking a lot of these kinds of questions, how can we have more exchange to develop our own digital platforms? How can we really take on that data governance piece so that rather than just picking smartphones out of the trash, we're actually using them and able to organize ourselves in a way to kind of rebuild some of the power that maybe we've already built up in other areas of our sector. So just to conclude, I wanted to just thank a few leaders who really contributed to that exchange. Leonda Pachuayo from South Africa, Nora Padilla from Colombia, Pietro Lupi from Italy, Manu Mateos from Argentina, Kusum Begum from Bangladesh, and Krishna and Pinakini Solanki from India for their contributions to what I've shared today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Taylor. And thank you in many ways for bringing the conversation to this idea of data, right? And we often forget that this is the main commodity in which platforms are dealing. This is what they're sort of appropriating and extracting from workers and then selling on the market without workers really accruing the benefits of this. And not just in the waste picking sector, we're seeing this, and perhaps this is a common ground for all of us. We are seeing this across sectors. So thank you for bringing the conversation to that. We are at the hour, but because we said we would extend, I want to see if anyone had questions. Now is the time. I think we can take a couple at least. We've had very interesting comments in the chat. Particularly, I'm going to pick up on Martin's idea from the Wage Indicator Foundation on, is there a platform globally for workers, available for workers, so that they can reach out to other networks, to other organizations, really combating this idea of information asymmetry, which is what platforms thrive on by withholding data from workers and information from workers. Can we find a way to bridge that? That's something we had come up. Feroz talked about how workers should be able to rate and rank and comment on employers rather than that just being one way. But any other questions or comments or clarifications? While you think of that, I do want to say that this is the first of a series of webinars. We have a few months before the ILC in June, and we're hoping to convene more spaces like this. So please do follow WIEGO's channels for information on this. We have events coming up in April, in May. Do also sign up for our newsletter to stay connected. Yes, I see we have a question. Idaluza, do you want to go ahead? You can unmute and speak. You'll have to unmute though. I can see that your hand is up, but you're still on mute. Or if you're there you go. Yeah.
Hi, good morning. I wasn't able to turn on my microphone. Hello, everyone, brothers and sisters. It is so nice and so good to be able to receive all this information. Hello to Sister Jemima as well from HomeNet. I am also a member, but I'm from Latin America, so I am a part of COTRA-DALAC, which is a regional organization. And I would like to know the following from all the speakers. Is there some sort of support for them to have or to start having the possibility to develop an independent platform? Because here in Brazil, we have that dream, not having an intermediary in our jobs. Here we have developed an app called Atendo Aqui. Atendo is our local organization where buyers can reach producers with no intermediaries. So I would like to know if in the organizations present here, do you have some sort of experience linked to that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And my colleague Federico, who's on call, will be very happy to hear this because at WIEGO, we're also very interested in worker-owned platforms. That is the dream, yeah. Would anyone like to come in and comment on that? Any of our speakers? Pat.
So yes, this is actually a very interesting question, and I think we do need to apply our minds to it. At the moment, there are a couple of governments in Africa who have banned the main platforms that we know, like Uber and Yango, and have put in place national apps. So it's almost like nationalizing the platforms. That's happened both in Togo and in Namibia. Now that's not owned by the workers. Still, it's a government initiative, but it is a move away from the commercial apps having complete control. But we do have to apply our minds more to the question of developing worker apps. I know that in Cambodia, the organization IDEA, which organizes street vendors and tuk-tuk drivers, they started to develop their own app for the tuk-tuk drivers once e-hailing became more commonly used. And they did develop an app. I'm not updated about how far that has got, and I think we don't have anybody from StreetNet online because this is an affiliate of StreetNet. But it would be good to follow up and find out what happened to the app of IDEA in Cambodia. So I definitely think I know it's not something that will come up a lot in the preparation for the negotiations with the ILC, but as a way forward, I do think we need to give it some serious attention. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, no one from StreetNet, but I know Fish did also mention co-ops and worker co-ops possibly. Tanari, you have your hand up. Did you want to respond to this?
So I'd
Yes,
like
I
to share
would
that
like
in
to
Thailand,
share
we
that
actually
in Thailand
develop a
we
platform, for
has
example, a
this
platform
platform that got
that is called
developed.
ตามสั่งตามส่ง that is considered created
So rider
so that
can
the
have
riders
their
can have their own
governmental
platform
to try for
but at the
using.
moment, this
But
platform
now
is
it's
still in the
still at
experimental
a
phase.
beta stage,
And after
testing
using it
stage.
for 2 years, we still
We
have to
start
develop it
tested
further
for 2 years,
because there's
and
no
we need to
guarantee
develop
for
further more
in
because
terms of
we still
income for
don't
the
have
workers
wage
and
guarantee
if
or
the order is
the
canceled
measurement
and the price has been
in
paid
case that
and who's gonna be
rider
responsible for that.
get canceled and they already
And
pay
it's not
the
okay
payment to
platform for
vendor
our
already.
riders
What
yet.
should be the measure?
And
The
this application
application
is
called ตาม
developed
สั่งตามส่ง This one
by
got
Thai Health
developed by
Promotion
Thai Health
Foundation as
Foundation
well as
in
Chulalongkorn
cooperation with
University
the
students.
Chulalongkorn University. Another app is like Move Me. This is an application for tuk-tuk drivers, and it got developed for both rider also. But this Move Me application apply area is still only within Bangkok, and if it's effective to use with workers, we can expand this Move Me application to regional areas for the local transportation, so it can answer to the needs both to the workers and the users. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanari. Jemima, did you want to respond? And then we'll go to the next question.
มี
Thank you. And thank you, Eliosa, for joining in the call and also for the question. We are very grateful and also happy to know that Attend already has a platform that they're using to reach clients so that they forgo the intermediaries that has always been an issue when it comes to market access. So one thing that I also wanted to share is that HomeNet International has not particularly put in an app that would help with either sales or reaching out to the clients. But one thing that we are using is that we have created a bazaar website. We are able to showcase the products that the home-based workers produce. And under those products, we have the contact addresses. And so if somebody is interested in reaching out to the producers, they can directly reach out to them without even HomeNet International becoming an intermediary. So we're just setting in an example just to show that, yes, we are not for the idea of intermediaries, and this is what we are doing in the small little ways that we can. But having an app is something that is very nice, and I think it's something that should be given some thorough thoughts around it. But our bazaar is working in the meantime to support with connecting clients directly to the producers without HomeNet International coming in as an intermediary. Thank you.
That's good to know, Jemima. Thank you for that example. I will quickly go to two questions. We have Mbai first, and then we have a question from the Korean participant. Mbai, did you want to unmute and ask your question?
Thank you
ขอบ
very
คุณมาก
much.
นะคะ
My name is
เดี๋ยว
Mbaye.
นะคะ
I'm from Senegal. I work with Union, which is independent in Senegal. I'm the manager in charge of this platform
เอ่อ
that is with the taxi motor, the
เดี๋ยว
motorbikes.
แป๊บนึงนะคะ
It's a contribution, not a question. I'd like to thank WIEGO, StreetNet, that we are all participating in this important webinar.
เอ่อ
And currently, I'm working with a union from West Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Benin, in Togo, in Burkina Faso. And we are seeing how we can work together so that we can participate in the next CET. So I'd like to thank all the participants who are in this webinar. And I hope it's not going to be the last one, and that we are going to work together so that we can be able to advance the jury conference. And I would like also to thank a speaker who came to Dakar. And it was a fruitful meeting. And I'd also like to thank all the workers that are participating in this platform. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, this is not the last, and I imagine not just WIEGO, there are several networks, organizations who will be organizing their own events. We had one last question from the Korean speaker.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is a question from Youngmi Choi from South Korea. The question would be, other than this webinar, what is WIEGO planning to do in advance of the ILC meeting?
Thank you so much. That's a great question and allows me to kind of end this webinar. Thank you for everyone for waiting the extra 15 minutes. Like I said, there are 2 more webinars that are planned. We're still shaping them, and we'd very much like to hear from you on what is useful to platform workers. I left my email in the chat, so please do get in touch. Follow our WIEGO channels, and you will hear about the next events that are coming up. So, and also it's a great way to see what we are up to apart from the platform workers movement. There is a lot of work that WIEGO does, and all of this work informs each other. So do keep in touch with us. Sorry.
I'm Gete Carrillo. Good morning. I'm from Peru. I'm from an organization of domestic workers. I have a question. I'm concerned in relation to the fact that platforms are very important for us because we also have our children and we have friends actually who are currently working in platforms and they have no rights whatsoever, no social protection. So how can domestic workers, we have a law and we are, well, actually more than 92% under informal employment. So how can we have access? Actually, after the pandemic, which was overwhelming in firings, most of domestic workers are hired by day or by hour. So I've heard that they want to include for the ILC this group of workers. And I think this is very important. The fact that WIEGO is actually thinking about this because WIEGO is always supporting the domestic workers and we thank for that. But I would like to know how this can happen. Will it affect or not any laws existing in the countries? Thank you.
That's a great question, Katie. Do any of our speakers want to take that? How does this convention or how does regulation of platform work interact with other existing laws and regulations? And of course, this is very country and context specific. But if someone has, yes, Pat, you have thoughts on that. Yeah, and also to extend, Pat, not just the ILC conventions, but also their own local, state, national laws that may interact with how platform work is regulated. Ruth, you have your hand up. Did you like to come?
Yeah, maybe just a quick comment. I think we've seen a real diversity of approaches. So, for instance, in Kenya, the government moved quite early on to regulate the e-hailing sector. But then, the regulation itself was quite ambiguous and it was within the scope of the National Transport and Safety Authority rather than within the Department of Labor. What is now on the table for South Africa? So South Africa has introduced amendments to its Basic Conditions of Employment Act. And what its proposal is not to regulate platform companies per se in questions of labor, at least, but rather to expand the definition of employee to include workers that are not in direct employment relationships, including workers in contractual relationships. And it places the onus on the platform or the employer to prove that workers are genuinely self-employed. And so to qualify as self-employed, a worker must be able to exercise autonomy over the labor process and operate completely independently from the organization of the employer. And I think what that does in theory, right, is to move away from trying to have a kind of sectorally based specific regulations. Because one of the things, you know, for instance, if we look at sort of the attempt to create specific regulations around domestic work in places like Mozambique, et cetera, is that it effectively removed domestic workers from the labor law. So you have to be careful to, you know, in this kind of process, how do you not, you know, under the guise of having specific regulations that respond to the specificities of a particular activity, how do you not actually then create the basis for a sort of contraction of labor rights? And so I think that the South African case, rather than trying to move to regulate a particular sector or platform work specifically, rather is trying to have these amendments to the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. The only problem being, going back to Pat's critique, is, well, what happens to workers who are then genuinely self-employed? And, you know, do they then get excluded and left by the wayside? And I think that that is still an open question.
No, and it is, and this aspect of pushing for universal protections, whether and disengaging it from perhaps the employment relationship question, is something also that the informal sector organizing and lobbying has been, you know, pushing for. But we must also then engage with who gets left out, as you started us off with. I think we will leave it there for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This was a very engaging conversation. I'm glad we were able to extend the time, and thanks, everyone. I think most people have stayed on for the extra 20 minutes. Interpreters, thank you so much. You've done sort of heavy lifting today, so thank you for allowing us to engage across languages, 6 languages today, so thank you for that. And yes, we look forward to staying in touch and keeping this conversation going. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.